everyone, my name is Charlie Minato, and I am here in Dallas, Texas, and someone's speakers are on. We'll see. Yep, still on.
Sorry, that was me. That's what happens when you get me to check the Facebook page, man.
All right, so my name is Charlie Minato. Hopefully, Patrick has turned his speakers off. It seems like he has. We're here for the packaging top 10 of 2023. And to my right, and at the bottom of your screen, it is Brooks Whittington. Brooks, how are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for asking, Charlie.
And in the middle of this is Patrick Lagreid, who is in Phoenix, Arizona. Patrick, how are you this afternoon? Patrick.
All right, I should be back now.
Are you? Are you?
Sorry, what happens. I'm here. I'm
okay.
here.
Well, no, I had done your intro. I had said all sorts of compliments about you. And
there we go. Sorry.
It's very nice. It made me tear up, actually.
Yeah.
Well, that's what happens. You ask me to check the Facebook page, and my phone automatically pulls my AirPods over to the phone, and then it takes my computer into speaker mode. So this is really, I'm just going to put this back on you. Anyway, let's go.
And there goes the Apple stock. How are you doing this afternoon, Patrick, other than technical difficulties?
I'm wonderful, although it's still morning out here in warm, sunny Phoenix. So I
guess I hadn't
doing great.
Contemplated your dumbass time zone. Anyways, we are here for the packaging top 10 of 2023. It, as the name implies, is the packaging, a list of the top 10 packaging. It is not the top 25 cigars for Half Wheel. That will be tomorrow. Also, apparently we can broadcast Instagram Live. I don't get the sense that's working, but if you're watching via Instagram, if you could let me know if that's working, that would be great. Patrick, I take it Facebook is working, given the
Facebook is working. If you want me to check Instagram?
No, we don't want you to check Instagram. No, thanks. No,
we're good. All right. So with that said, we're gonna get to the first question of the day, which wasn't really intentional, but Eric L. Smith wants to know, what are we smoking? Patrick, let's start with you.
So I am smoking the Sober Mesa Blue that has been sitting in a bag on my desk for a while and has been calling for a special event and haven't had one. So this is probably the closest thing I'm going to have to a reason to fire this up. So Sober Mesa Blue. Brooksy, what you guys smoking?
I'm smoking an LFD Solus.
And Charlie?
Convinced. Hopefully this audio is working. I'm smoking the new.
I can hear you fine.
I know you can. The new Hoya Nicaragua Cinco de Cinco. I haven't smoked it yet, but I know Patrick reviewed it and had generally favorable things to say about it, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right, so that's what we're smoking. As I've said like 4 times today, it is the packaging awards, and yeah. So we do this every year. This is something that predates Half Wheel. I think this is like the 13th packaging awards that we've done so far, and it's a celebration of the best packaging, both from a design perspective as well as from a, I probably should take Eric's comment off the screen, as well as from a from like what looks pretty. That said, it's not just like a complete free-for-all of subjectivity. Patrick, do you want to sort of explain the highlights of sort of how we come up with this list every year?
Absolutely. So each of the 4 members of Half Wheel, which is the 3 of us, as well as Brian Burt, who helps us out with awards and trade show coverage, can nominate a piece of packaging throughout the year. There are a couple criteria that it must meet. First off, it needs to ship in 2023. So things like the Fuente Padron Legends project is not yet eligible, as it's not yet shipped to a retail store. It needs to be substantively new packaging as well, not just a new color or a new font, or in the case of something like some of the Mirapful products, sort of an adaptation of a design with, maybe a different ashtray or different bands. And finally, and this is probably the biggest thing, is that at least one person on the Half Wheel team needs to have seen the item in person to verify that it lives up to the pictures in terms of quality, build, fit and finish, etc. Pictures can be deceiving at times, and they're never going to tell you the full story of a product. And that's why we actually want someone to see it, hopefully use it a little bit. Also because seeing something, touching it, creates a different impression, sometimes both for the better and for the worse. So that is sort of the qualifications. Once we get all those things lined up, The staff members are tasked to rank them, and then everything gets scored, and we end up with a winner. So I think, Charlie, that kind of covers that. I know you want to talk about some of the score samples.
Yeah, so the way that we go about ranking these things is that it's just a very simple. This year we had 17 potential nominations, or 17 nominations, and we're just asked to rank them 1 to 17, with 1 being the best. So this is kind of an example of what it might look like. It's the 3 of us plus Brian Burt, who also participates in the top 25. And it's just a simple, like, once we've ranked them 1 to 17, we tabulate all the scores, add them up. It looks something like this. And so, with that said, we're going to get started. And I think we're going to get started with Patrick talking.
That's right. So we start off the list with kind of an interesting backstory. As Drew Newman of JC Newman told us a while back, he received a handwritten note that someone from the NBA had called him. And he thought it was a solicitation from like a business machines company, or somebody was just trying to sell him something. It sort of was a solicitation call, but it was from that NBA, the National Basketball Association. And that call led to the number 10 item on our list, which is the American AllStar Humidor. Now, this is a humidor that uses sections of the 2011 NBA All-Star Game court, which is acquired through the NBA's Reclaimed program, which seeks to find creative ways to repurpose courts once they've kind of served their purpose. And what that also means is that this is an officially licensed product, which is certainly cool on its own, but even more impressive that this happened in 2023, when seemingly most organizations wouldn't want to be associated with a cigar or tobacco company. Now, the humidor was created by Jason Laguerre of JML Modern, which is a woodworker and humidor maker based in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Each is a unique mix of designs that use the 3-point line, plus have scuffs and scratches from the game. Each humidor holds up to about 90 cigars, but again, this is a packaging awards list, not a humidor list. And each humidor comes with 30 of a new 6.5 by 50 Toro Extra Vitola of the American, along with a Boveda seasoning kit, wooden Boveda holders, and also inside is a set of really interesting cards that I know, Brooks, you found particularly interesting.
Yeah, so the cool thing about this, one of the cool things about this is when I was opening it up to photograph it in the studio, I realized that the cards, there's a number of them, but the coolest thing that I saw in the card-wise was the fact that there's actually a card in there that shows exactly where the piece of the top of the humidor came from on the court. And so it actually has a marking on it that says your piece came from this part of the court. And I thought that was a really, really great, a really great example of something that they could do that really sets it apart. And just a very cool aspect of what you can show.
Absolutely. So that's our number 10, the American All-Star Humidor. And Charlie, I believe you're up with number 9 next.
Incorrect.
Actually, I am.
No, you broke
Number 9 is the Hoya de Nicaragua Antonio Power Play Sling Puck. Now, Hoya de Nicaragua actually released a single game-based cigar box back in 2020. That was called Shut the Box. That's a dice-based game that you basically take the cigars out and you roll the dice and play the game that way. Last year, they decided to follow that up with a second addition to the series, I guess you could call it, and this is called Sling Puck. And basically, we have a video that shows exactly. Now, this is Charlie and I playing the game, and essentially the game is played by the players actually try to put the wooden pieces there through a slot that is cut out in the box, and it's done with elastic strips that you actually put through the box as well. Everything that you need is in the box to actually play the game. I wasn't very good at this game and lost horribly, but it's a very fun thing to do, and it's very cool to see that and see that that Hoya de Nicaragua was actually branching out a little bit. Yeah, it's a game, but it's a very different game. This time there are 2 cigars in the box, not just one. 10 of the Antonio Grand Reserva GT20 and 10 of the Antonio Connecticut Toro, which that blend actually won our Cigar of the Year back in 2019. Charlie, what do you think of the cool box?
Yeah, I think this is one of the more interesting things on the packaging list, because if you just looked at the outside of the box, or maybe even the inside of the box with the cigars in it, you may not. I mean, like, obviously there's something a bit different going on inside, but you probably would not initially think this is something that belongs on this list. But it's one of the things that we try to do with the packaging awards list, is not just recognize necessarily the prettiest boxes, but I think both this and the American Humidor highlight some of the creativity that goes into the ideas behind some of these packaging items that we see. And, you know, this is a classic case of a cigar box being more than a cigar box. And, I'm undefeated at Sling Puck. So, you know, how could I complain, really? All right, so moving on to number 8. It is the La Aurora 120th anniversary limited edition. So this is a new line that, as the name would imply, celebrates the 120th anniversary of La Aurora, which is the oldest cigar company or the oldest continuously active cigar company in the Dominican Republic, or still existing cigar company. They're the oldest by a number of different standards. Again, I think if you kind of just looked at the outside, you might be a little bit confused as to why, at least from this one picture, why this thing is on here. But once you see the box in person, it becomes quite apparent. So this box opens up in a very different way from a traditional cigar box. It opens up from both the left and right sides, and it has this like incredible presence to it that's only sort of emphasized further by its weight. This is one of the most deceivingly heavy cigar boxes that's out there, although I don't actually think it's due to the box itself. It's more due to what's inside, and that would be 10 of these Preferidos number 1 tubos. These tubos are interesting in a number of different ways. One of the things that was pointed out to me when the cigar was shown off at the 2023 PCA Convention and Trade Show over the summer is that these gems that are on the Preferido tubo are throwback to the original like packaging that La Aurora would use back in the day, maybe Leon Jimenez, which is the original company's name. And so they decided to bring this back for this 120th anniversary release. But Patrick, I know that's not really what caught your eye in terms of the most interesting aspect of these tubos.
Yeah, I think what got me when I saw this is the fact that they moved the way you open it. So instead of being a traditional, you kind of remove the cap, they put a hinge on the side and a pair of magnets. And I actually still have mine sitting here. So as you open it, it's done like that, which you can see on the screen. And it was so interesting that, and I don't call it futuristic, I almost thought maybe it opened on its own somehow. It was just that unique of a design. Like, did La Aurora figure out a way to put like a mini hydraulic lift in there or something to open this way? It's really simple, and I think when you know the history of it, it's both a nice throwback and acknowledgement of the past, while also embracing what could be considered sort of a futuristic look for today. It's also, I don't think you mentioned this, it's one of the heavier tubos that you're going to find on the market. I weighed it, and I got it at about 93 grams. I think you said it was somewhere in there, or about 3.3 ounces, which is familiar. And you were telling me earlier sort of an interesting experience you had with it when trying to sort through the ones we had.
Yeah, so I was opening the box up to take some cigars out to weigh and measure the cigars, which is what we do for all of the cigars that are reviewed at Halfwheel. And I couldn't tell which tubos had the cigars in it, which is very odd. Normally, if you pick up a few tubos, you can kind of feel which ones are empty and which ones are still have a cigar inside. But these were they're so heavy. They're, as Patrick mentioned, more than 90 grams. To give you an idea, a typical Robusto is going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of about 10 to 13 grams. When you get into the larger sizes, like a Toro, a 6x54, a Churchill, even a 6x60, you're starting to creep up into 20 grams. So these are like more than 4 times the weight of even the heaviest of cigars. And this isn't, it's a decently heavy cigar, but it's not 25 grams of cigar. So extremely heavy metal tubos, very well done. The box itself is super impressive and probably would have been considered on its own, but the whole package really came together, and I'm curious to see what the cigars are like because I've not smoked them yet, but
yeah,
I guess
and
we'll
I will
find
also
out at
say
some
too,
point.
I mean, one of the things I like about really good packaging is it gives you something you want to hold on to. And I don't necessarily know what I'm ever going to do with this. I just know I don't necessarily want to get rid of it. And one of the other things that is really critical about this, there's not a lot of margin of error from what I have seen in how those cigars fit in the tubos. So the people who are making them have to be pretty spot on, because you obviously don't want them to rattle around and potentially get damaged, but you don't have a lot of give. So it really just is it's an impressive piece of packaging, celebrating a milestone anniversary for the company.
That it is. So moving on to number 7. It is the Davidoff Limited Edition 2024 Year of the Dragon. This is the latest entry in Davidoff's Zodiac series, which has been prominently featured on the packaging awards list over the last decade plus. I would like to point out that, as Patrick mentioned at the beginning, one of the qualifications for things to be eligible is that one of the 4 of us has to see the packaging item in person. There are 2 other releases as part of the Year of the Dragon. There is the Year of the Dragon flagship exclusive, which is only sold at Davidoff flagship stores around the world. And then there's also the Masterpiece Humidor, which is limited edition numbered humidors. They are super impressive looking in pictures. Unfortunately, none of us saw them. So for the purposes of this, we are only evaluating the standard Year of the Dragon box. And, while I think it probably would have scored a little bit higher if we had considered the Masterpiece Humidor, the standard box is no slouch. So Patrick really has pointed out this white tab at the bottom, which looks like this, and that's the start of it. So you take this tab off, and it attaches this bottom piece to the box via magnets, and you need to do that because this does not open like a traditional cigar box. Instead, the cigars are presented on this tray that has another tab that you pull to slide it out. This is just another, very well done packaging item, certainly, but another sort of, hey, what happens if we put cigars in a box like this for the Davidoff Zodiac series? I remember, I don't know, maybe 8 years ago, I was talking to the person, I don't know if they still are, but the person who ran the company who made the packaging for the first few releases in the Zodiac series. And we were just talking, and I remember telling him, like, at some point you're going to run out of ideas, and we're just going to end up with a very standard-looking cigar box. And while this is not the most interesting of the Zodiac series releases to date, there have been 12 or 13 of them, depending on how you want to sort of classify it. It's still super impressive. And the one thing that I mentioned in the write-up, and that I remind myself every year when we're voting for packaging awards, and I'm curious to know if this is your experience, Patrick, is that I have to sort of imagine what this box would be like or this entire packaging item would be like if it was released from a company other than Davidoff, because the bar with the Zodiac series has been set so high. It sort of, I think, jades my impressions of how impressive each new one is.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. And I would agree this as well, that this isn't my maybe favorite design, the Zodiac series. I'm personally partial to the Year of the Horse, since that's my Zodiac animal, and I just like that design. But I do love how Davidoff continues to bring a trait of the animal to the design, whether that was the burrows of the rabbits in previous years or sort of the stripes of the tiger. In this case, using the scales of the dragon in a way that really does capture your attention visually by, sort of making it look like it's almost spiraling in. I also love the fact that they include the pearl that the dragon's holding, which is a symbol of wisdom and spiritual energy and power, and further kind of attaches into the background of the line. And like you said, Charlie, Davidoff has set the bar so high for these kinds of releases for themselves. But as you said, if this came from anyone else, there wouldn't really be a second thought about why it belonged on the list. So why should there be one just because it's Davidoff, who continues to produce fantastic packaging for this Zodiac series? And so I think with that, it's time to move on to the number 6 spot. And the creator of the product in the number 6 spot is the same one that got us to rethink our rules for the 2021 awards when they released an advent calendar. And that is SmokeIn, the retailer in South Florida, who once again released an advent calendar this year, but also added a Hanukkah box with 9 cigars inside, 8 for the 8 nights of Hanukkah, and a 9th to represent the shamash candle, which is used to light the other candles on the menorah. Now, this meant some design changes, namely using the Star of David, as well as 2 different shapes for the internal pieces, 6 triangles, 3 pentagons, all of which are numbered and get decorated with candles. And as for the cigars inside, they're not being disclosed, although one was the Opus X, the Great Smoke 2021, which I got to review as part of Holy Grail Week this year. But SmokeIn does say that they are, quote, specially procured cigars that are not readily available. Now, there's also a corresponding set of cards that identify the cigars inside. And what got me is that this is just another evolution of a really interesting design that did present some different challenges other than the traditional rectangular advent calendar box. Brooks, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on it since you were the one tasked with photographing it and really got to spend a little more hands-on time with it.
Yeah, and look, the original one was impressive, and this one is even more impressive to me. It's well put together. It's well designed. When I opened it up in the studio, each one of these cigars has its own letter, file thing there that you open up and you can see information. Very well printed. I mean, it's a high quality product all around. And to think that this came from a retailer instead of a manufacturer it's an impressive display that I'm really hoping that they continue to release these things, because I love photographing them, to be honest.
Oh shit! It was me.
And with that, we move on to number 5, and Charlie.
Apparently is my my thing to announce. So it is the Punch Dadbod. General Cigar Company is no stranger to this list. This is the American Punch, not the Cuban Punch. And it's General Cigar Company's been on this list before. Punch has been on this list before. And this year they released this cigar called Dadbod. And they leaned heavy into the Father's Day theme, if you can't tell. These are cigars. These are not beers or seltzer water or whatever you might think. But they do obviously come in cans, or at least things that look like cans, and very much look like beer cans. So you can see there's Mr. Punch on the can, grilling. We're just doing the full Father's Day motif. Now, one note, we have seen some other cans from other manufacturers that have actually functioned like cans where you need to open them up with a flip-top lid. This does not do that. This instead has a removable lid that means that you open it up, you can take a cigar out or 2 cigars out, you can put it back on, and each can has a small Bovida pack inside of it to help humidify it. I think that the exterior packaging, the cans and the 4-pack holder were fantastic. But my favorite feature, and I think Patrick yours as well, is actually on the cigar itself. And it is just, again, here we're just doing the low-hanging fruit with Father's Day.
Yeah, I mean, certainly they're playing into the the get dad a tie as a gift kind of thing. And number one, to create that's really impressive. And then to think about how the person's going to smoke this is to approach this. There's a little small perforation right there at the base of the knot that you just tear it off, or you can remove the band entirely. But if you want to leave it on, all the more, you can do that. And Charlie, I mean, as you mentioned, one of the things I really like about this, and I generally like about packaging that scores high in general, is the cans are reusable. So once the cigars are out of them, you can hold on to them, use them as a stash can. You can throw your accessories in it, your spare change, random screws, all those things that dads tend to hang on to, whatever you want, really. And this is just another example for me of, General, STG, Forge, that whole group, really leaning into an idea and a theme. And they've done it before. There was the Punch's somewhat Zodiac themed series that include the egg roll, the chop suey, the kung pao. There have been some barbecue sets. There was a smoker set from years ago that I really liked. So again, kudos to that team for just, really embracing the idea of Father's Day. Again, you go back to the 4-pack. It even says it's a father figure, and it says on the cans, which is a play of the shape of the cigar, kind of a petite Solomon, I guess maybe you'd call it. Or
they call it the champion size. It's it's a bit of like a beefier work of art.
Yeah, it's got. I mean,
what's say?
Given that just kind of sort of bulging parts, sort of the lower half. Just again, nice way to lean into it. And again, a lot of cigars on this list, I think, would be considered serious and really elegant, refined. This shows you can also have a lot of fun with packaging, which I know definitely scored points with me, and I have to assume, given that it ended at number 5 with a lot of other people on the panel as well.
That it did. All right, so the Punch was, I believe, the least expensive cigar that's on this list. At number 4 is the most expensive box, I think. Maybe the JC Newman. It's close. But it is the Adab limited edition Humidor, or I guess complete selection if the microfiber exterior protective cover would indicate.
Bag.
Anyway, it's it's not the bag that made it on here. It's in fact this just super impressive looking humidor. We first saw this 2 years ago actually at PCA 2022. It took another year before it started shipping to stores. It is certainly a very modern and pretty looking high gloss box, but that's not really what made it on here. It's the most substantial thing I think that's on this list, certainly the largest, and that's because it looks like this when fully opened. So it comes with 60 cigars, 12 different vitolas from Selected Tobacco's Adab line, 5 each. They each have their own sort of custom fitted places within the humidor, and it opens up like a standard humidor. So it's got that top lid you can see that reveals 4 cigars. There's another shelf or tray below it that slides out that's got another 4 different vitolas. And then there are 2 sort of batwing style, almost like shelves that slide out of the left and right sides that each contain 2 different vitolas. It's got an included humidifier that's got an Adab logo on it. It's got an analog hygrometer, an analog thermometer, and it's even got a Adab branded microfiber cloth to help clean those fingerprints off. One of my favorite features on it is that, at least for the one that we got, there was a plaque on it that says which store it went to. And I would also like to give a special shout out to Industrial Cigar Company in Frisco, Texas. They were kind enough to let us borrow this humidor to take photographs of it, so that way we could have these high quality photographs for the packaging awards. And Brooks, you were the one that took all those photographs. Your thoughts on this release?
Yeah, when I saw it at the PCA show, I covered the Selected Tobacco booth. And when I saw it, I was blown away by it. It's a massive, massive product, and I had to back up quite a bit to shoot the pictures. And you know,
We got zoom lenses.
There's a lot of detail in that goes into something like this. I mean, all of the vitolas have names underneath them where they go, and it shuts and looks great when it's closed. It doesn't look like you have 5 different. 4 different places to have cigars when they open up. It's a very impressive piece. The interesting thing is, Charlie mentioned while we were doing the run through yesterday, was the fact that I didn't think about the idea that you really can't use this for anything else, though, because all of these cases, all of these trays are fitted to the cigars that are in them, and so. If you are a huge Adab fan, which I assume you are if you're going to buy this, then it's perfect because you can just keep refilling it. Otherwise, you're going to have to kind of mix and match if you're going to put other cigars in there.
It's just going to look ugly.
Yeah.
One thing I think that is really worth pointing out here, Adab is not the value price play by any stretch of the imagination. They are pricey cigars. However, one cool feature with this is that it's $4,000 for the humidor. It's the same price as if you just bought the cigars at MSRP by themselves, which is an interesting sort of selling point. Certainly, you've got to be a big fan of Adab or just want to show this thing off or whatever, right? But normally there's some sort of quote-unquote humidor tax. In this particular instance, there's not. Now, part of that may have to do with the standard Adab packaging is pretty impressive on its own right. So, this is just a slight upgrade compared to whereas most cigar boxes to this humidor would be a massive upgrade. It still is super impressive. Number 4 on our list, and I think very, very well deserved. Going to bring Patrick Lagreid back in here because I think it's time to move on to Numero Tres.
That is correct. And coming in at the number 3 spot is a project that brought a pretty unique backstory to life. Certainly one that not every cigar company got the chance to be a part of. And that is the Lunar from Fratello. Now, long story short, Intuitive Machines is a company that produces vehicles and crafts for outer space. They're sending its Nova C Lunar lander to the moon, and founder Steve Altimus reached out to Omar de Frias a while back to create a cigar in commemoration of the launch. And that launch is now tentatively scheduled for February. It still has not gone up to the moon yet. As you can see, the actual lander has quite an intricate design, one that would be hard to replicate in a manner that would be affordable and proper for cigars. But what Fratello did do is come out with a still very impressive design. There's actually 2 versions of the packaging. The Lunar Connecticut and Cameroon blends come in the models without the bases and are not humidors. The Dominican Puro blend, which is in the middle, comes in an 18-count humidor that adds the legs of the lander. And this is another case where seeing it in person really sold us on the quality. And Brooks, I know you got a chance to actually unpack this, get it set up for the photos, and sort of feel how this this design looks, especially for something that is marketed as a humidor as well.
Yeah, it's solid, and I have tested it as a humidor, obviously, but it's a solid piece, and it's not flimsy in any way, and it was packaged very, very well. So it, all of the legs had their own little spots in the foam, and it was impressive when you pulled it out. It's smaller than I expected, to be honest. When I heard about it the first time, but it's compact and it's very well done. I was impressed with the details that go into it and the look that it looks like a lunar thing, something that falls on lunar thing that goes on the moon. Yeah, he should throw some in there, and some of his cigars that go on the moon.
Oh, take the cigars to the moon?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm sure that'll be a very cheap shipping fee. It'll be $9.95 flat rate box. It's going to go on the SpaceX rocket that Patrick's got on his desk over there. And, it definitely.
But on that note, things. I mean, and there are, one of the ties-in is that, as Omar has said, that it was very common to celebrate successful missions at NASA with cigars. And the lunar is going to be what is lit up when this particular lander ends up on the moon. So, again, just really neat. Bring the concept to life, do it right. I think...
and I think 40 of the humidors went to Intuitive Machines. So, because these are limited editions, and unlike the last one, only priced at $450, not $4,000. So, slightly more affordable.
Yes, indeed. So, with that, I believe it's time to move on to number 2, and this is the second item on our list to feature a certificate of authenticity signed by Drew Newman of J.C. Newman. That's the Leroy Neiman 2023 Collector's Edition. Now, J.C. Newman had a bit of a head start in the art department as by way of its relationship with the Leroy Neiman and Janet Byrne Neiman Foundation. He got to use a lithograph of Neiman's Irish-American bar, which he painted in 1978, as the vista in the cigar box. That piece is also featured on those large bands that cover the foot of the cigar. But what really sold me on this, and I have to think as some of the panel as well, was what's found beneath the cigars, and that is a replica print of the paint-covered floor of Neiman's New York City studio, where I have to think he probably smoked a cigar or two, as he was known to enjoy a cigar while painting and creating his works. Just, again, an absolute beautiful execution of a partnership between the Neiman Foundation and J.C. Newman. Charlie, I know you had strong feelings about that underside as well.
Yes, strong feelings about that booty. I am a big fan of the floor here. When I first saw the picture of it, I was curious to see how J.C. Newman was going to execute this, because painting inside of boxes, infamously Taiwan the Drac, is not a good idea. And yet you really want to celebrate the paint aspect here. So it's got tons of texture, and that's found throughout the different printing on here. So like even the tertiary band that you mentioned, Patrick, it's just got way more texture than a typical cigar band that may have embossing or engraving. And yeah, it's the packaging budget here for printing had to have been substantial. A couple other things I thought are really cool about this. So you mentioned that it's a collaboration between J.C. Newman and the Neiman's Foundation. It also, as part of this release, both Newman and the Neiman Foundation are donating all of their profits back to Tampa Public Schools, which is where J.C. Newman is based, specifically for funding art programs in those schools. And this is also the first in a series. So the plan is to pick a different Leroy Neiman painting every year, or Leroy Neiman piece of art every year, and to come out with a new cigar based around it. I smoked the cigar at PCA and really liked it, actually. I don't know who's reviewing it, but it was probably my favorite cigar I've smoked from J.C. Newman's El Rouleau factory. We'll see how the review goes, but at least upon early impressions, pretty good. All right, we're going to bring Brooks back in here, kick Patrick out.
Bye.
You ready for number 1, Brooks?
I am, and the number 1 spot for the packaging awards this year is the Cohiba Spectre 2022. Now, I know what you're thinking looking at this box. You're thinking to yourself, wow, that's an interesting box. But it gets better. And we have a video that actually shows you exactly what, one of the reasons that this made the list. Now, the box is unlike anything that's on this list. And as you can see here, It's actually, the cigars are in tubes, metal tubes this year, and they are raised and lowered out of the box via a mechanical, lever that actually goes up and down. The motor that is attached there, you can actually push on that Cohiba red dot in the logo, and it actually makes that lever go up and down. And it is extremely impressive, very heavy, and it's just the design alone is amazing to me. We saw it, and when we took it out to photograph it in the studio, both of us were like, "This is very, this is going to be hard to beat," and it's just. It works. It looks great. The tubes are very, very, very impressive as well. And the whole thing, the whole collection is just works together so well. And I know you had some really great thoughts about that, Charlie.
Yeah, this is the fourth Cohiba Spectre release. They have not done one every year since introducing it, I believe, in 2018. But this is the fourth release. It's called 2022. It came out in 2023. A bit confusing there. And it's the fourth time that it's finished at the top of the packaging awards. Some of those years has been tied, but it's never finished worse than first. And it's with good reason. It's a similar thing. It's the comment I made with the Davidoff Zodiac series, where it's like, I wonder when they're going to run out of creative ideas. But this is the most impressive one in the series to date. It's just like, I don't know who sat there and was like, you know what? The way that we should have these cigars be presented to the consumer involves electric motors and having them propelled out of the top of the box, which is frosted plastic. I guess it's not glass, but is made to look like frosted glass. And then they should come in these elaborate tubos, and there's like a flip-top lid. It's just a completely different way of presenting cigars. I'm sure there's, some very wealthy people around the world that have some sort of humidor that's got motors in it that can present, their special vintage cigars or whatever, or probably fake Cohibas. But in this instance, it is absolutely spectacular. And there's nowhere, like, the tubos are great, the bands are great. The whole thing has been great from start to finish. I'm curious to see if there is going to be a Spectre 2023 release. The first three all sort of came out at the same time of year. Last year, this one sort of came out of nowhere in the middle of the year. So perhaps we'll see a Spectre release in the first half of 2024. The other interesting note here, this was, I think, a little over $1,000, if I'm not mistaken. And they've all been expensive in the Spectre series. But this was not the most expensive new General Cohiba release of the year. There was a $5,500 biometric humidor. None of us saw it in person, so it wasn't eligible for this list. That involved like a biometric fingerprint scanner to open up the box and just all sorts of other nonsense. So that's the packaging top 10. And I think it's a pretty good list. Patrick, I mean, how do you think this list is compared to where we were last year at this time?
Yeah, look, I think it's what always impresses me about a packaging list is the mix of different things that lands items on this list, as well as just how good the next 5 or next 10 could have been. We're certainly, it's a good time for cigars. It's a good time for packaging as well. And I think what's really interesting to me is some of the connections that came in with this. In particular, the American AllStar Humidor, which, as I talked about, was an officially licensed product that had the NBA seal on it. The Fratello Lunar, which is a project that brings in a company that's sending crafts to the moon. The Newman Foundation getting involved as well. Granted, he was certainly a cigar smoker, but again, as I mentioned, it sort of feels odd to see companies wanting to associate with cigar and tobacco companies in 2023, and there's certainly been a number that don't want to. But again, I'm always just impressed by the mix, and I think in terms of like the Davidoff and the Cohiba, the ongoing creativity that companies bring of it's not just enough to win one. We're going to, take our award, celebrate it, and then go back and do something to push the bar even higher.
Yeah, certainly. And I think the other thing that's nice about this list is, extreme diversity, not just in the items themselves, but also I guess there's a couple companies on here that have multiple entries, but diversity in where they come from, how the cigars are displayed, and then also certainly in price here. We've got some $100-ish cigars, and we've got a cigar that's probably less than $8, if I'm not mistaken. So a very interesting list, but probably not the list you're most looking forward to from Half Wheel this week. That will come tomorrow. We will be back same time and places, I guess, technically, because hopefully the Facebook, Instagram thing worked. Patrick, you want to check that right now? But we'll be back here tomorrow to unveil the top 25 cigars of the year for Half Wheel. And then I will be back solo on Monday for the consensus. I'm not going to explain what that is today, but there's many of you that know what it is. If you don't, you'll find out at some point. And that's a Q&A show, so get your questions ready for that show. I'll answer questions about the consensus, our top 25, packaging awards, kind of whatever you want. But it's going to be a slightly different show with me going solo. So for Patrick Lagreid in Phoenix, Arizona, Brooks Whittington to my right, Brian Burt in Florida, I think, who contributed to this list. I appreciate his work each and every year on all of our award stuff. I am Charlie Minato, and we will see you tomorrow. Maybe.